Yes, hello there and welcome to today's episode of Weekend Rewind. Yes, this is when we put our hands back into the Join Up Dots vaults, swirl it around a bit and find an episode that maybe has got lost in the midst of time. And this is in response to the amount of requests we get from people who say, David, with all the episodes you've released, where should we start? Well, it's very hard to find a place, so we're just going to randomly pick one, and this is today's episode. Enjoy.
When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there everybody and welcome to Join Up Dots. It's episode 418 and I'm delighted about this one today because I've got two ladies on the show. Yes, I rarely get a chance to speak to one lady, but two ladies, and they're both Australian. So, and even better, they're both up the road as well. So they're actually in London at the moment. So if I knew anything about Australians, we could have met in a bar and started drinking and recording live. And the fact that it's 8:30 in the morning wouldn't stop them either, I'm sure of that. Well, it is an absolute delight to have them on the Join Up Dots show because as they're ladies who literally bound around the world like some sort of excited Labradors, and believe me, that may not sound like a compliment, but it certainly is, as the two of them have had some huge setbacks in life but haven't allowed them to lose their spirit for life and their desire to create adventure in their relationship. Now, after originally meeting in 2010 at a course in Sydney called The Quest for Truth, it became evident that the quest for truth was going to be linked with their love of travel. A few years back, after leaving Australia, they entered into a business opportunity in Dubai, which of course they thought would be a good move, but turned out to be anything but. Or so, hey, they would have thought at the time. But as we see literally every day on Join Up Dots, the darkest times in our lives become the moments where we find our true paths. Left with literally nothing, they had to reassess what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it, with the caveat of making it as cheap as possible. And with a mere $300 in their pockets, they decided to start travelling through house sitting as a way to save money on the rent they could no longer afford. Now, they figured if they could save themselves rent and utility bills for 6 months or so, they could get back on their feet and then go and do something they really wanted to do, which of course would involve travel. But actually, this is the good thing, they found it already. And now are the creators of the international house sitting community, where they share their knowledge and experience with anyone who has that desire for the nomadic lifestyle, which I think most of us have at one time or another. So do they look back at Dubai and go, do you know what that really was truly the making of us? We wouldn't change a thing. And do they believe that within all of us there is a business that can be built purely on our passions, leading to a life that we love? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots with the one and only Nat and Jodie. How are you, ladies?
Good morning. Excellent. That was brilliant. Thank you, David.
I've already been drinking, I promise you. I start. So let's cut to the chase, because that was a true kind of comment about, it was a sweeping statement about Australians, but it's kind of true as well. Would you be drinking at 8:30 in the morning?
We've been known to. Maybe 20 years ago. Probably a bit long on the tooth now. I need my sleep more.
Because we've got some Australians in our family. If they're listening to this, God forbid, they're going to sort of Facebook me and criticise me. But they came over for about 3 weeks and they stayed about 6 months. And we had this, my mum and dad, many years ago, were having a 50 wedding anniversary. And my dad had filled up the garage with alcohol. And he said to one of the guys, oh, don't go down to the off licence, just go into the garage and help yourself. And within 2 weeks, he'd consumed the lot. And that was 6 years of alcohol content for us to consume. It was unbelievable. It was like a swarm of alcoholic locusts with one person leading the way that went in there. So is that a sweeping stereotype, or would you say no, that is true?
Well, absolutely sweeping stereotype. I mean, I've had my moments, but Nat in particular, she's pretty much been a non-drinker most of her life until, even though her brother is actually a beer connoisseur, when we were in Peru, something shifted. She started drinking beer. I know. It was just amazing. So now she's a beer girl.
Wow, you're even more perfect in my eyes, then. So which one of you sort of leads the way? Because it it's a double act, really, isn't it? Nat and Jodie. Wherever I went online to sort of virtually stalk you, those names appeared. And who got top billing, first of all? That's a good question. Who decided that, Nat's going to be the best one to go first?
Jodie actually decided that.
Well, the reason for that, though, is we're the bookends of the zodiac. So Nat is actually 11 months older than me. So every year for just 1 month, we get to be the same age. so I thought
as the older,
just the senior could get it.
Yeah, the senior's first, apparently, in our relationship.
You've always got to respect your elders, haven't you? That's the way you do it. So you are living a life that you can literally call the world your home. And you can travel around. And the fact that before we started recording, I was slightly freaked out that when I first looked at Skype, it said Mexico, and then 2 seconds later it was London. So like Doctor Who, you're getting across the world at sort of a rate of knots. How do you decide about where you're going to go? How do you go, right, we're in Mexico, next stage London? Is it planned, or do you literally sort of spin the globe and put your finger down and go, that looks good?
No, it's not really spinning the globe. It really depends on where our house sits come up. So we're actually booked up to August next year now. So we know exactly where we will be for the next year. But it really does depend on what assignments are coming up, what housing assignments, what ones gel with us, and we apply for them and get them, and that sort of determines where we end up after that.
I have to say, though, like when we first started this journey, I was one of those people who could never see past next weekend. So I certainly started freaking out when I had like 10 months worth of where am I going? I didn't know how we were going to get there, because at that stage we didn't have the money to buy the flights, but I just had enough trust that it would all work out. But it was certainly strange to go, wow, like I know where I'm going to be for 10 months. This is bizarre. So I'm a lot more used to it now, 2.5 years down the track. And like Nat said, I mean, other than a couple of little small gaps here or there, and now most of it is return house sits. So we choose where we want to go back to. We don't always want to go back to the same place, but sometimes they're just so awesome we have to.
And sometimes they're dreadful. Did you go to somewhere and you go, okay, the house is lovely, but the surrounding area, there's nothing to do, and it's just like a kind of very swanky prison?
No, not really. A little bit in Ecuador, because security is quite high in the areas that we're in. So, you've got, we had just come from the Sacred Valley in Peru, where we had just, I don't know, open space and mountains and all that sort of stuff. And then we got to Ecuador, and we're in sort of four walls, really, with
broken glass at the top of the gates.
Yeah.
And all sorts of crazy
all
security
sorts of stuff. So, and that's just not our way of living, sort of thing. So I think that felt a little bit boxed in.
And
that's probably the only place, really.
And are there some places that you say, right, I'm going to stay there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, and then you think, God, actually, it'd be great if we could get a place around the corner because we've only touched on this place?
No, then in that case, we'd probably go back for a repeat sit. But because we are booked up with back-to-back sits, we actually don't have the time to just sort of, I'll take another 2 weeks here sort of thing. We're actually on to our next assignment usually. By the time that one's finished.
But we're also not doing the journey around the world, like seeking where we'd like to live. We had a conversation actually with the suitcase entrepreneur, Natalie Sisson. She stayed with us for a few weeks when we were in Colorado. And she said, I walk down the streets sometimes and in places and sort of think, I could live here. Do you ever get that? And I'm like, no, I don't want to live anywhere. I mean,
not one time you've been somewhere, because I know Natalie and she's a lovely lady and she's doing sort of great stuff. But I think that most times I go somewhere and I either go, no, this is dreadful, 10 days and I'm out of here, or actually I could settle in and it's quite nice. So you never get that feeling at all.
Well, not from the perspective of, say, like, I could live here. I guess if I say I could live here, it's like, well, I am here. I am living here. I don't have any desire to kind of plan out, where I'd retire or anything, because I feel like I'm just going to be on the move forever. At this point in time, anyway.
Yeah, certainly at the moment. I think we're in the mindset of travel at the moment rather than pulling up stumps sort of thing. So we just have no bone in our body that wants to settle down anywhere. To us, travel is settling down and a comfort zone now.
In fact, we pulled up at our longest house sit has been 4 months, and we decided that was 1 month too long. So we won't take on anything that's longer than 3 months now. But our sweet spot is probably around the 6 to 8 week mark, and then we're a bit ADD, got to move on.
We're ready to go again.
So let's take you back in time, because obviously we can hear it in your voice. You found your thing, and this is something that you don't want to give up, and you're loving it, and you're building this amazing community of other people doing the same thing. And until you connected with me, it hadn't dawned on me that you could do this kind of stuff. I just thought if you travelled, you'd have to get a hotel or a campsite or something. I didn't think that you could sort of go and stay at other people's houses. So if we took you back to that stage in Dubai when your business went a bit pear-shaped, as we say in the United Kingdom, it went a bit wrong. Do you look back on that and go, yeah, that truly was the making of us? If that hadn't have happened, our path would have been totally different to what we're experiencing now.
Well, if we didn't go bust in Dubai, I would pretty much guarantee we'd still be there. So trying to recoup the money that we spent on it, because it's not a case when you go to places, well, certainly in Dubai, I'll only speak for Dubai, it's not $100 or $1,000 investment to create a company. It's actually $30,000 or $40,000. So it's a lot of money to put in and then to recoup back out as well. So we would still be there, definitely.
And outside of that, I don't know that we'd actually be together, because Nat being caged into the sandpit, she was going bonkers even just after 1 year. She was like, I need to see green.
And the ocean, and it was really hard work for us, I think, coming from Australia as well. As Jodie said, like the whole nature thing is really important to us, and you just do not get that in the Middle East. So that was starting to send me around the twist a little bit. And I think we just bought ourselves a really expensive job, basically, like a $30,000 or $40,000 job.
Well, that's the key thing, isn't it? So many people listen to these podcasts and they have entrepreneurial spirit in them. And when I talk to them on a one-to-one basis, which I do a lot of now, if somebody comes through to me, more often than not, I will try to connect with them. They seem to almost want to replicate what they had in an office in their home environment. They seem to almost set it up that they're going to be doing 9 to 5 every day. And I go, well, why do you want to do 9 to 5 on your own with the cat? Why don't you try to do something that is a little bit more to do with what you want to do? And you seem to have touched into that. You seem to have found that essence of travel and that nomadic lifestyle. Can you take that all the way back to the young versions of you in Australia? Were you the kind of girls that was always running around trying to find adventure?
Well, I'll speak for that first, because my family definitely moved a lot. I mean, in grade 5 of primary school, I was in 3 different schools in 2 states. So I sort of had the on-the-move thing. The longest I actually did stay in one place as a child was I went to the same high school. I think that was important for Mum and Dad. But despite being in the same high school, we still moved house 3 times. And, even throughout my life, I mean, I never really stayed in one place longer than, I think it was a maximum 3 years, like within a job. But I'm literally the polar opposite of Nat in that regard of sort of where we grew up.
Yeah, my family, my mum and dad are still in the same house that they've been in, that I grew up in. So that's like, they've been there 50 years now. So.
And do you like that the fact you go home and it's kind of like your real roots? Because my mum and dad moved into their house in 62 or something, and they're still there. And even though I grew up there, when I go back, it doesn't kind of feel like my house, because I've sort of moved on and had families and all that kind of stuff. But do you like that grounding, that there are roots that you can go back that are so familiar to you because it's always been there?
No, not really. I don't really have a sense of that, to be honest.
This is going well, this interview, isn't it?
We are real gypsies. I can see it now.
We're hoping that they do actually do their final move, because if they move from Sydney up to the Gold Coast, it's just going to be so much more convenient when we do our first trip back to Australia in 3 years at the end of this year. It's kind of a we have to go back trip, and it's like, well, let's at least get them up there so we don't have to split up over Christmas.
No.
And it's so big, Australia, isn't it? I've been down there twice, and I don't think I will ever go there again, because I just think, if God wants me to go to Australia, he wouldn't have put America 5 hours away. It's such a long journey, isn't it? Especially with kids. I can't bear the thought of it.
Yeah, it's a really long journey, and we are going to track back this year. We've got 2 nieces that we've never met before that are like aged 2 and 3 or something. So it's about time we went back.
But exactly what you said, though. I mean, that's what it came down to with us, losing everything in Dubai. It was pretty much that question. You look at the map, and you say, look at that big old island at the bottom of the world. Like, do you really want to head all the way back there? Not that we could unless we borrowed money anyway, but it was just seeing how close the Middle East was to Europe and the UK, and as you say, over to America. It's like, oh, we want to do this, and somehow we're going to make this work.
So how did you do it? You're in Dubai, because this is the real nuts and bolts of the whole story, isn't it? You're in Dubai, you've got this trust that something's going to work, and it didn't. How do you rally yourself to go again? Or was it just survival mode? Did you stumble across what you're doing now purely by survival?
Yeah, it was, definitely. Yeah, we really had got to a stage where we were living in a small apartment in Dubai, which was very nice, but things were definitely going pear-shaped. Our business partner decided after 3 months that he wanted to pull out, and he was financing everything. And in Dubai, you actually can't close the business down within the first 12 months. So no matter how bad it's going, you've got to hang in there. And everything gets paid on 12-month contracts. So the lease on the office was there. All the utilities had to be paid. Everything still had to run for the full 12 months. So we were beside ourselves. We really did not know what to do. And we both reacted quite differently to it. I would basically go and lay down and just sleep. I just had no answers. I was to the point where I had no answers left. I was so confused.
That's a good thing with depression, isn't it? You do get your sleep.
Yeah, I did a lifetime of sleep in a year.
So, of course, it was totally doing my head in, because I'd be like, we've got to take some action. I'm searching my mind for some inspired thought on how to bring some cash in. And she's laying down. And I'm like, you're kidding me.
Yeah, I know.
You're doing laying down.
I know.
But I guess to backtrack a little bit, sort of even before the Dubai thing, I mean, we'd only actually been in our very first same-sex relationship ever. I mean, it was very much like half-time change sides type of thing, 40-year-old virgin, whatever you want to call it. But 4 months into our relationship, and, this opportunity came up to go to Dubai. So many of our friends at home were like, really? The Middle East, a Muslim country?
Where it's illegal?
Where it's illegal? Like, what are you doing?
That is a bit bizarre, actually, now you say it, isn't it?
Yeah.
When they said it to you, did you go, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that?
No, actually it didn't.
It just felt right.
For some reason, Dubai felt right. It called us, definitely.
Yeah, but I think what had happened, like, because of the experience, having met, as you say, at that seminar called The Quest for Truth, which is now actually called the WTF experience, which makes it even better. So through that kind of work that we'd been working on, we'd actually kind of stood there saying, yes, let's, I really want to experience magic. I mean, I'd seen some crazy stuff go on with Nat, because she'd sort of been on this journey a little bit longer than me, to the point that even in Australia, she had she logged into her internet banking, and she had a credit card that had like $12,000 owing on it. And I don't know, maybe I was in the stalking her, kind of getting to know what her finances were. But I remember looking over her shoulder.
It's all coming out now. It's all coming out.
I know.
She didn't tell me that bit.
But I remember looking over her shoulder one time. She was logged into her internet banking, and I saw the $12,000 debt. And then, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, she said, oh, my God, this is really weird. Look at this. And the debt had gone down to $1,500. And we're like, because I'm an ex-banker, and I'm going like, oh, let me just have a look at this. I've got to see the logic of this. And I've gone back in, and there was this really strange transaction that had almost wiped out the whole debt, and it never came back. So I'm like, okay, that's the type of magic I'm ready to experience. Let's go to
So
Dubai.
what was it? Because I'm an ex-banker as well. So what was it? Because my experience of having money come into your bank account when you don't expect it is ultimately they will find it and take it back out again. And so did it not?
It didn't come back.
This was actually a withdrawal. It was really funny because I logged on and looked at it at one stage and went, oh, that's really strange. Like, oh, that must be a glitch in the matrix. And that was it. I didn't think anything more of it. And then literally about a week later, I went back in to do whatever I was doing with my bank stuff and went, oh, that's really weird. It hasn't come back on my Visa card.
My logic,
that's really strange.
My left brain was kicking in saying, well, if for any reason they were going to write it off, it would be the whole amount. Why would they leave this? It was a strange amount. It was like $1,683 or something.
And the entry said unusual transaction. That's exactly what it was called. And it was like, okay, that's really bizarre. Really bizarre.
And did you not phone them up and say, hang on, this has happened? Or did you
not? No.
Because
No,
I got 20 grand in my bank account once, and all my mates said, oh, you can go off on holiday. I said, no, I'm going to leave it there. It stayed there for 2 years until they found it. And when they did find it, they took all the interest back as well. And I said, come on, you might as well leave me the interest. It was your mistake anyway. But no, they took every single penny back. So I would have had to phone them and say, hang on, is this right?
It might have been a bit different if they deposited the money into the account, but because it was actually wiping out a debt, it was a credit card. I think that was a little bit different. So I was quite happy not to chase them about it. But no, I'm a solid believer in magic like that, that reality is not fixed. So it is capable of being manipulated and changed, and with no explanation. And I didn't go looking for an explanation. I just went, okay, it's one of those moments. It's one of those magic moments that occur in life, and thank you, I'll take that as a gift. So that was it. It never came back.
Because your relationship seems like a magic moment as well, doesn't it? The fact that I'm trying to sort of remember the voices, but one's Nat, one's Jodie. It's quite difficult to do this. But who was the one who was sleeping all the time?
No.
Right, okay. So you seem a sort of lot calmer. Am I getting that right? You seem as somebody who likes to think things, and Jodie's, come on, let's go, which is like the perfect hybrid of a business, isn't it? One person is sort of pulls back and is more reflective, and the other one drags you forward into areas you don't get. It seems magical that the two of you have complemented your personal strengths so well.
Yeah, definitely. Jodie's a lot more spontaneous. She'll jump into things, and you're right, I will sit back and I'll think about things a lot more logically. But then when it feels right, like I probably get stronger visions on things. I go, right, this is the direction we're taking. I'm really seeing this very clearly right now. Let's go. And so we sort of lead the charge in very different ways, and the other person will sort of back up in very different ways as well. So,
which came down to even with the house sitting thing. I mean, it was actually getting really close to the end. We tried everything to either on-sell the trade license, do anything, because it wasn't just about losing money. I couldn't leave the country until I cancelled my visa. And if I didn't cancel my visa, I would have been up for another 12 months worth of fees because I was the managing director on the account, like the residency. So we had to do something, and we were literally down to the last sort of, couple of months of that. And for some reason, it was like I started looking at the escape plan, and the escape plan led me to looking at house sitting sites. And that was when I remember just sort of looking through, and I started, reading out to Nat like these different places, and I'm like, wow, we could do this. Because I had actually, my marriage fell apart, like I actually went house sitting to start with, because Sydney's a really expensive city. And I walked away from everything. So I didn't take anything out of my marriage from the house or anything. I literally was starting from scratch there too. But house sitting was what I did in Sydney. And I never thought of it being an international thing. So when it came back to me kind of, almost a year and a half, 2 years later, it was like, oh, wow, we could do this internationally. So those little kind of inspired thoughts is where it comes from me. But then I, run it past Nat to get have you seen this vision? Is this for you?
What do you feel about this?
Well, let's play some words, and then I'm going to take us on to the next stage of the conversation, which is very much about how you got this going, because I know there's going to be a load of people out there looking for that creative spark. And I know that as soon as you sort of connected with me, I sent an email through from a friend who is desperate to travel abroad and experience the world, but can't quite see the angle of how she can build an income into doing it at the same time. But these are the words that we play every single day on the show. We're going to do it again. Jim Carrey.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
So you were a banker, which is a safe job. You then went to Dubai and failed at something that sounds like it wasn't your kind of thing. And now you've taken a risk on doing something you love. That speech is literally written for you, isn't it?
Yes, except there was a big gap between my banking career, because that was way back when I first left school. I only did 4 years with the bank, and then I went on to actually do resort and tourism management all around Australia. So the kind of travelling thing kicked in with the hospitality and tourism there. But yes, the security and safety aspect of a job was probably more Nat's story than mine. I actually had a bit more of that entrepreneurial tainting as being part of my upbringing. But Nat, on the other hand, with her safe, secure, Australian Federal Police position that she wanted all of her life.
Do you still have the handcuffs, Nat? Sorry. It's still not 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what's come across me.
I know, we're talking about alcohol, handcuffs. I mean, really, like, what do you take us for, Aussies?
So where you listen to those words, do you kind of go, yeah, that really is the message that should get out to the world today? Because I see it on a daily basis that it doesn't take a lot of risk for you to fundamentally change your life. With the opportunities that we've got now through the internet and the World Wide Web, you literally can do a very small risk and it be life-changing. Do you see that as the message that everyone should buy into?
You know, it's really funny, like people say living this life is stepping out and taking a risk and all that sort of stuff, but having a job is not. And it's like, I just see it the opposite. It's like, if anyone's got a job, it's like such a risk because you have no control over your own destiny. Like, that can be taken away from you in a heartbeat, like a relationship can, like money can, which is exactly what happened to us. Money was taken away from us in a heartbeat, and then it was gone. And it's like, so how secure are those things really, like when you dive into it? And to me, doing what we're doing now, doing what we love, and creating our own income and learning the skills that we need to learn to put our business together, that can't be taken away.
Well, it can't, can it? But people still buy into that. Get a job for life. It may not be a job for life, but it's security. They still buy into that. And this whole show is about being happy. And I always say, if everyone was an entrepreneur, no one would serve us at McDonald's. You've got to have some people that are going to be employees, because otherwise the fabric of the world will crumble somehow. But you can be happy in your job, can't you? And that's the thing. There's so many people that are doing jobs that they hate and they dislike, but they're not willing to take that chance to just be able to look at their passions, look at their talents, and feel that they can provide a service and get reward for that and actually enjoy doing it at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I do feel that that's probably the mindset of a lot of people. Like, yeah, you're right. A lot of people do enjoy their job. I was in the federal police. I loved it. It was what I wanted to do ever since I was a kid. So, yeah, absolutely, people can enjoy their job. But if you're not, I guess what I'm saying in what I did say was, don't fall under the illusion that there's security there, because if it's something that you don't love, my honest belief is it will be taken away from you eventually, because our natural progression is to move towards love, to move towards what we do love. So it's, the universe or God or whatever you want to call it is trying to push you in that direction constantly. So these challenges that we had in Dubai and stuff, in all honesty, we weren't doing what we loved. We really hated it at the end of the day. So thank God it happened, because it was trying to push us in a really difficult, challenging way, because we were gripping on to the so-called security so much that it hurt a lot.
Well, what comes up for me out of that is it was actually a massive ego trip. I mean, even the fact that it took sort of 3 months for the whole thing to be put together, we were being chased by Nat's boss at the time. And, now we can see, we're a little bit naive perhaps, can see his agenda of that, but the ego kicked in to say, oh my God, like I'm going to be a managing director of a company. This is huge. And this is where the magic is. I said I wanted magic and here I am creating it. This guy wants to start a business. But it was such an ego trip and it was so untrue and it was not what we wanted. We didn't want to be chained to a brick and mortar business. We wanted the freedom to be doing what we were doing.
So why do it then? If you kind of know that fundamentally, which it seems you do, why did you do that?
Because it was definitely about the staying in the UAE. I was getting sick of having to go out every 30 days because I only had a tourist visa. So it was about getting that visa. So in some degree, it was definitely about that kind of, quote unquote, security. I don't have to go out every month. And we were still chasing that false goal of money. It was like, well, Dubai's where money is made. So we keep hearing Dubai's where money is made. We can make a lot of money here and then start traveling. But it was such a false belief system that, we needed the direct experience. Perhaps we are a bit too thick or a bit too slow or something, or maybe it was just that our ego was so freaking huge that we needed a massive humbling to be able to say, well, what if you actually did what you loved first and then the money will follow?
It's funny, though, how it comes into your life at certain times. You know, talking about myself, I was a financial trainer and I did training courses and I used to teach people for many, many years. And I got bored of it, basically. So I decided that what I was going to do, I was going to quit my job and I was going to become a chat show host, which I've done. And on that element, I love it. Absolutely adore this, like the greatest thing I've ever done. But now I'm getting this strong vibe that I want to teach people again. It's coming back to me. And even though I sort of pushed it away at the time, it's coming back. And I can now see that that is my real passion. This is a kind of ego-driven thrill that I do. But the actual teaching people of how to change their life is always there. So if you look back over your life, are there clearly defined dots that actually you missed leading to where you are now? Did you always have those kind of inbuilt passions like I have, but it's just taken a while for you to actually find them?
Yeah, I think I searched for a while for what it would be, because when I was in the Federal Police, that was what I always wanted to do ever since I was a kid. So when I left there after 13 years, I was really lost for probably, I don't know, a good 5 or 6 years. I slept a lot. For 5 or 6 years, I was really stumbling around going, I have no idea what I want to do. I started to get drawn into consciousness work and personal development and wealth creation and all those things, that sort of path, which was very unusual for someone being in the police to suddenly start going down that sort of more feminine, esoteric type line sort of thing. So I think that helped me feeling quite lost because it was such a different way of life and a different way of looking at things. But I think the sense of entrepreneurship started to come in. I was really feeling, I'd really like to create a business actually, but I don't know really doing what. Maybe it's doing seminars or helping, doing coaching and that sort of stuff. So I started a couple of businesses. They didn't go anywhere. Back in Australia, I moved to New Zealand for a while, started a company over there with a friend of mine. So I was really wandering along until I met Jodie, pretty much. And then we wandered together for a while.
And took action, took sort of big action, whether it be big action fail, big action succeed, big action move, and I think that's been good for both of us because I couldn't do it on my own. Like if I didn't have my, grounding with Nat, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now because I'd tried it for a while. I mean, moving resort management jobs every few years all around Australia was kind of that, grass is always greener somewhere else, until I hit my pinnacle job right in the heart of Brisbane City, 4.5-star corporate hotel. It was so easy that it was boring, but stayed there 3 years with this fantastic apartment, and it was like, okay, where do I go from here? I mean, any management job that I take on from now is either going to be a step side or, a step backwards. So the entrepreneurial thing had always been in with me because my parents were quite entrepreneurial. I knew I wanted to have my own thing, but I just didn't know what that was going to be. And when I first stepped into that space and, started on the personal development path as well, I learned quite quickly that it was going to be based around what I loved, but I needed to find what I truly loved. And I had to go through all these different experiences of thinking that what I loved was what I loved, but in actual fact, it was what somebody else wanted or somebody else expected of me. And it was a real process and journey that Nat certainly helped me get through to get to my truth.
It's astonishing, isn't it, really, that you can build a business so easily, but actually it's so hard as well because you can't see it at the beginning. I put a post on Facebook yesterday because my life at the moment is going like rocket power and it's literally I can't do anything wrong at the moment, and I said, isn't it amazing when everything comes together like magic? Or put another way, it's 5 years of hard work that's made me become a magician. And I feel like that at the moment. But when you start off a business, number one, it is risky, not really in a financial sense as such, because you can do things really cheap on the internet. You get a website out and you get a little bit of connectivity and you network. It's not like brick and mortar. So the financial risk, I think most people, unless you are really, really, really up against it, you can start with a cheap WordPress site or whatever and you can get going. But it's that scary business in your head, isn't it? Of, oh, this isn't going to work. What value have I got to provide? I don't know anything, but you do, don't you? You do. And when that magic occurs, you actually think to yourself, God, I could have done this so much quicker. I had it all already. It was always here, but I just couldn't see it somehow. Do you see that with yourself now? Because obviously you started off with the house sitting community. Was it the fact that you went, instantly, I can see that we need a community, we need a website, we need to get some videos up there, we need to link through, that's going to be good? Or was it step by step by step?
We didn't have any plans.
No, what had happened was the first 6 months of our house sitting, we were still hanging on to this idea of, putting out a digital magazine that was all about self-love and primarily for women. But, of course, all of my earlier marketing psychology education was just going out the window. And we now realised that journey of over 6 months of pulling together all these different articles to put this magazine together, it was an app for mobile, was actually for our own healing. Like, we needed to go through all these different topics of self-compassion and self-love and speaking our truth and all these different things. So it healed us, but it was never going to be our business. But it took us a while to wake up to that. And it really wasn't until we were back in London house sitting, at the 6 month mark, and this girl came to the door and she was collecting money for the RSPCA. And being that we're non-residents of the UK, we actually weren't allowed to contribute because you do have to have an address here. And she said, "Oh, why don't you have an address here?" We said, "Well, we're house sitters." And she was like, "What?" And we explained to her, and she literally stood there and said, "Oh my God, you have changed my life." And we looked at each other, went inside and bought a domain name straight away and went, okay, this is about the 40th person, but nobody's been as dramatic as this girl. Like, we need to start telling people about what we do and how we do.
But it is dramatic, isn't it?
Business.
Yeah, because when you came through to me and I sort of went on the website, I instantly thought, I know loads of people that would love this. And it's one of those ideas that you kind of slap yourself in the head and you think, why did I not think of it first? And the beauty of being on the online world is, even though you guys are doing your stuff, other people can follow along. Other people can do it, and it won't touch your business at all. It's so global that there's no scarcity, is it? And that's one of the things people will think. They go, Nat and Jodie's doing that already. Well, do it again, but do it differently. You put another spin on it. You can create your own business in markets that already seem saturated. It just means that they are a profitable market.
Yeah, definitely. There's plenty of house sitting opportunities, most definitely. Like putting our business together in teaching other people how to go house sitting definitely was by default. It really wasn't a planned thing at all. We just started by, as Jodie said, buying the domain name and putting some blog posts together. And then we thought, well, we really need a community because there was no place for house sitters to get together and talk to each other.
And give referrals more than anything, because we couldn't go back to every place that was coming to us. And we're like, well, this has to be happening to other people. So we really started the community primarily just to connect with those other house sitters to say, hey, can I pass this great homeowner on to you that we can't help out?
So it was a tsunami, was it? As soon as you
absolutely.
You couldn't deal with it?
Definitely. Yeah, and a lot of house sitters find the same thing. When you're really good at house sitting, obviously the homeowners would love you to come back the next time they go away. But, of course, if you're traveling around the world, that can mean that you're a million miles away from where you need to be. So we now have a network, basically, where people can share those referral sits, which is really cool. So it started from there, really, and then we got creative, I suppose. We went, okay, well, we've already done a mobile magazine. Let's do another one on house sitting, because there's no one done that yet. We've just started a podcast. So there's different things that we've done, an online course, a live academy experience in Greece that we've put together. So these are sort of really brand new things to our industry that people haven't done.
And it's what hasn't been there. I mean, all the way through, people were saying to us, well, why don't you start up one of those matchmaking sites? It's like, look, there's plenty of matchmaking sites, and that is the last thing we want to do. We want to provide the support and the education and the entertainment around this growing niche, or this growing experience, because we're really into the win-win side of it, the sharing economy side of it, the deeper level of conscious benefits, and that's what we want to bring to the table, because there's half a dozen different books out there, there's 20, 30, 40, 50 websites out there that match people up all around the world. we didn't want to do what just everybody else was doing. We wanted to bring what was missing to the table.
So how do you make your income? Obviously, the people that are clearing off out of their houses pay you to sit in the house for a while. That's quite obvious. But
No, they don't.
They don't. You just turn up and
We volunteer.
We're actually volunteers.
I thought they would pay you.
No.
We've been paid on 2 occasions where there's guest accommodation involved. So when you're actually doing, work and that owner is making money out of that, then they're passing on some of their profit share to you. But to do the straight up house sitting is completely just fair exchange. Imagine how much we would be paying right now, David, to have 2 weeks in London.
Well,
what is
absolutely.
that worth? So we just look at that as going, well, yeah, we're going to walk the dogs once a day and feed them and water the plants, because that's much easier and much more enjoyable as a lifestyle experience than going and forking out God knows how many pounds it would be to stay in London for 2 weeks.
So how do you, because I instantly thought, right, okay, that's part avenue, that's income coming your way, but okay, so now that's the freebie, and that makes sense as well. So how do you build that into a business at the very beginning? You're in Dubai, you go, right, let's carry on travelling, but we'll start house sitting. How did you start bringing income in so that you could at least eat and not just be sitting in people's houses watching Netflix?
Well, thankfully, I did have a little bit of online experience when we started all this. So outside of the initial, when we finally got to London after Dubai, I got really sick because it was a real release of everything that had gone on with the stress of that for the previous time. So the first sort of how do we buy groceries actually came from selling some personal jewellery, a spare pair of earrings and a gold bangle, and it's like, oh, we've got a month's worth of groceries to eat now. But when we got to France, we had a lot more time to sort of really breathe again and let it. And it's almost like the creative space started opening. So getting online, I started providing some press release services. So I just do the contracting type of work. And then that built into some affiliate marketing of software that we had been using for our mobile magazine. So we'd made some money from, just going out to our regional network and speaking to people that were interested in entrepreneurial activities and talking to them about different softwares. We'd make a commission on it. So that was the kind of getting it going. But I guess to point it out right now, our first year, the two of us only actually earned $12,000 for the entire year. Now, considering we started from scratch, had no credit card, no anything, the big question for most people is like, well, how did you survive? Well, we travelled around the world and our flights only cost us $2,500 each. So we were living on, $1,000 a month for the two of us. And if you've got no expenses, guess what? It can be done.
Well, that's not bad, actually, isn't it? And it's kind of weird that you have $12,000 on your credit card that disappears, and then your first income is $12,000.
That's quite funny.
There's a number there that's running through your life, isn't there?
Yeah,
that's very true, actually.
So if somebody was doing this, somebody's sitting here in a cubicle and they're listening to this conversation thinking, yeah, and they're starting Googling your website and looking around. Is it something that you've got to go, well, for the first year, it's going to be a struggle, but it gets easier? Or is it something that people can do reasonably quickly if they learn the right ways, they contact you, they buy into the community?
Well, if you actually, when I first started working online, I had, a fixed address. I had a mortgage. I had all my bills to pay. And even though I did have money at the time to put into starting my business, it was a constant pressure every month of having to come up with these expenses. So the huge difference about starting this business this time was that we didn't have any outgoings. There were no monthly outgoings. So to get small wins of, we just made $50 on a hosting affiliate, or, here's like a couple of $100 for doing a press release. Those little amounts didn't suddenly disappear into utility bills. They were just like, oh, this is ours. Like, this will buy our grocery and let's buy a bottle of wine and some chocolate. So it really is more affordable to start a business from scratch while traveling, particularly using house sitting, because not only does it open up a whole lot more creative space for you, because you're not having this pressure on your shoulders of having to meet your monthly bills.
Yeah.
And if you have got your own place and you do want to experience the travel thing, and even if it's not with house sitting, rent your house out wherever you are, go and live in Southeast Asia or somewhere really cheap, or Mexico or somewhere that's really cheap, and you'll find that if you know exactly that your monthly expenses are so little, you've got all this extra creative energy to put into your work, and you will hustle. Now, I don't believe anybody needs to do what we did in starting from absolute scratch. That is just like, that's our journey, our experience. Nobody else would do that, because if you were starting on traveling, you would have some kind of backup, some kind of safety net, money-wise or credit card-wise or anything. So starting something, even if it doesn't work out, do it for 12 months. See if it's going to be okay, and see just how much more flow you find in your life, because your eyes open to life itself through travel, the experiences that you're having. You're getting out of your comfort zone of where you lived.
But the beauty of what you did, and I mention this song a lot because I just love this one line, and it's a Janis Joplin song, Me and Bobby McGee, and it says, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And I love that, because the fact that you had nothing is liberating. The fact that you had nothing gives you opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have had if you've got like £5,000 or £10,000. It's kind of restrictive somehow to have a springboard to start, because you want to use it so wisely. You don't want to make mistakes. But if you've got nothing, it doesn't matter, does it?
No, that's it. That's a very good way of looking at it.
That's
I think
fantastic.
is that it's actually a gift that we didn't have money, because it wasn't just a one-off. We didn't have money. We, for the last 2 years, pretty much have got down to zero quite a few times, and I mean zero. So to the point of, oh my God, it's 7 o'clock at night in New York City, and we have to go and find a jeweler to sell this bangle because we can't get to JFK tomorrow because we've got a flight.
And do you like that? Is that kind of an adventure every time? Now you've done it numerous times. Do you just kind of go, yeah, okay, we can do this? Or do you still think so you don't get to the point going, oh, right, okay, this is my last item of clothing and I've got to sell this. You're keeping the kind of valuable stuff for a rainy day.
None anymore. No, I mean, I feel that we had that experience. It's like we needed to do that through those first, year and a half, 2 years. No more. Now it's like, oh, we're ready for new experiences. We've done and dusted, tick that box. We can talk about it, but I don't feel to keep doing it by any means. Our business is now finally getting off the ground. We are now getting a more regular income, and it's still not huge, but it's a good starting point.
Well, let's play the words now of the whole show. It's the reason why we called it Join Up Dots, and these are the words that Steve Jobs said back in 2005. And as always, I'd be fascinated to get the guest's spin on it. And today we've got two of you, so it's double whammy. This is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
So does it make all the difference, Jodie?
Absolutely. I love the reflective space. I love looking back and seeing the join up dots and going, wow, that's why that happened. That's what happened. It's inspiring, and it's exactly what happened. I mean, when I first met Nat, she had these huge National Geographic maps, atlas maps on the wall, and I was like, oh my God, I found my kindred spirit. It just was perfect.
And is there a trust, is there a faith that it's going to work out now, or have you always had that? As Steve sort of says, when he looks back, you've got to buy into something. You've got to believe that it's going to work. Does that get easier as you move through?
Yeah, definitely it does, yeah. Excuse me. I think when we first started out, it was really just quite haphazard, and it was like, yeah, let's give this a go type thing. But as we've gone on, definitely getting clearer and clearer visions about where it's headed and what we're creating. And I guess that's getting a little bit further out. Like I can see sort of further into the next year or so about where our business is heading now and stuff like that.
But only because we've looked backwards and we really have joined up a lot of dots. And even before we met, we had this sort of synchronicity path on when we first looked at wealth creation, when we went into personal development, when we moved more into the consciousness type teaching. We're doing it on this parallel kind of aspect until we actually came together. And, it's been an absolute gift to not only find my kindred spirit here, but my true reflection, which has allowed me to fall in love with me, which is something that I had lost, a long time ago.
Where's it going to take you then? So if we ask a question, I suppose, first of all, which I always like to ask, what is your big dot that has led to this point? And then I'm going to ask Nat that. Nat, what's your big dot that led to this point? And while she's talking, Jodie, where is your next big dot that you're aiming for?
Actually, we're going to swap those around. Jodie's going to answer the first one.
I know I'm lost. I'm on the second one already. You go for it.
Okay, our main dot. I think it was probably sitting on the train on New Year's Day 2013, correct me if I'm wrong, and Jodie we'd had a big night on New Year's Eve, and she woke me up and she said, I've just signed up to a house sitting site. And it was like, oh, okay. Because we had talked about house sitting, and she really didn't show much interest. I was the one that sort of going, oh, we should do this house sitting thing. This sounds really cool. And so she woke me up and she said, well, I've joined this house sitting site. So we actually sat there and we started looking through the site and looking at all the different assignments and stuff like that were on the books. And it was like, oh, my God, we can go to Panama and we can go to Costa Rica and we can go to Malaysia. And it's like all these different countries, and it's like, oh my God, it was just like a whole smorgasbord of travel opportunities suddenly opened up in front of us, and they were free. You could go and stay there for free, and it was like, oh my God, this is. And I think for the first time, because we'd been through all the Dubai stuff, we actually just, I don't know, we were like kids again. It was like Christmas Day, because it was sort of like, wow, this is like really exciting. Like, how cool is this? So that was, I think, a big shift for us. After such a long time of really feeling the pressure of what was happening financially in Dubai, and suddenly just seeing the possibilities.
And what about your big dot going forward, man? Where's the next big aim?
Well, definitely something that I've talked about, never with really thinking about what it was meaning, but for many years now, I've said, okay, if it comes down to really doing what you love, I just want to speak. And I've done a number of webinars and things like that. But until just 3 nights ago, on Monday night, we actually stood in front of 40 people and spoke. And oh my, David, I had stage fright like you wouldn't believe. But I feel that was a huge thing, because now I know I need to do the work to actually do what I've been talking about for the last 10 years, is that I do want to speak. And yeah, I think that's where we're going. We had, even though it wasn't a fantastic experience for me, Nat really shone. And we just know that getting out there and sharing our story and making an impact from having had this direct experience so that we can help people tap in and actually come and have live immersion experiences with us as well. So we do actually have our first retreat coming up just outside of Rome in October, but every year now we have the space in Greece through the winter for people to come and have a direct house sitting experience with us, which gives them a reference, which is usually the first thing you need to get started in house sitting. So we're liking the combination of combining networking and having live, real experiences with other people, but also that sharing, that passing on of our knowledge and experiences and wisdom, through the channels of quote unquote teaching, but I think more just that telling our story is more important to us right now.
Mm. You two feel blessed, don't you? You're blessed in your relationship. You're blessed at where you are. It just seems right from this side of the microphone.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. It feels like that too.
Yeah, definitely does.
Well, this is the bit that we've been leading up to, because this is the part that we call the Sermon on the Mic, when we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self, bringing us to the end of the show. And we decided at the beginning that Nat is going to be our time traveller today. So I'm going to play the theme tune, and when it fades, Nat, you're up. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
6-year-old Nat. Wow. Look at you, you crazy cat. You're full of adventure, and I don't know. I think it's just really interesting to see how you have such a lust for life. And I think the biggest thing, is not to forget that, because the feelings that you've got right now, that you're different, that life that you're seeing with people going to work and doing the 40-hour thing, each day is, I don't know, it's not you. It's definitely not you. So the feelings that you're having is actually true for you, to question things and to not be the same that you're seeing out there that everybody's doing. And I don't know, follow that. Don't give up on that, because what you're feeling is actually true for you, and you have to follow that wherever you go.
Ladies, what's the number one best way that our audience, who have been listening to you for nearly an hour, can connect with you?
The website is House Sitting World. So 3 words, housesittingworld.com. Every avenue that leads out of that directory will find us everywhere. So what we've got in our way of our products and our social media, and it's all there, housesittingworld.com.
And of course, you can find all the links to all the social media on the show notes as well. Thank you so much, ladies, for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our past is the best way to build our futures. Nat and Jodie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
It's been fun.
Are you ready to take your life to the next level and then the level after that, but are unsure how to proceed? Well, don't worry, as Join Up Dots coaching programs are developed to give you the skills, confidence and connections to fast track your life towards the future you want. With one-to-one sessions with qualified business coaches across the globe, action plans, group sessions and direct contact, that future is assured. Don't go it alone, but head over to Join Up Dots Coaching now.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide.